And this will be the lowest scoring game of the year for Portland. Mania waits at the logo, down to 2 seconds, 1 second. The Warriors have won 103-86 and keep their playoff hopes alive. And will stay out of the play-in bracket. Final score 103-86. Our electrified player of the game is going to be Jimmy Butler with 24 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds.
Yeah, Warriors did what they had to do. They got to win in Portland, 103-86. And as you heard the voice of the Warriors, Tim Roy, say, they, for the time being, stay out of the play-in tournament. They have not yet locked it up, but we know the Warriors will be one of 2 seeds. They will either be the 6 or the 7. Welcome into Warriors Wrap-Up. Mark Randy with you here on 95.7 The Game on a Friday evening. Plenty to get into because every day that passes in the Western Conference, there's like 8 different scenarios that change. It is beginning to come into focus for the Golden State Warriors now. Again today, a win in Portland, 103-86. It's the Warriors' 48th win of the year. They're now 48-33. They've got 1 game left. The Clippers come to San Francisco and Chase Center on Sunday. It's simple. If the Warriors win that game, they are the 6th seed. If they lose that game, they are in all likelihood the 7, although there is a chance they could lose and still be the 6. We will get into it all, but the best way to think about this is the Warriors have 3 chances to win a game at home to make the playoffs. Now, the best way to do it is to win the first one so you don't have to play the other 2 potentially, but there's 3 shots the Warriors have at home to win a game and then go to the playoffs. Beat the Clippers on Sunday, you're a playoff team. You'd be the 6th, you take on the Lakers. The Lakers won today, by the way, against Houston. They have officially locked up the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. So Warriors, beat the Clippers on Sunday, you're the 6th seed, you have the Lakers in the first round. Lose against the Clippers on Sunday, and then assuming that Minnesota does not lose to Utah, because if Utah beats Minnesota, the Warriors would still be the 6th, even if they lose to the Clippers. And there's a likelihood that Anthony Edwards is not going to play in that game on Sunday because he picked up another technical foul today and he has been suspended, or he will be suspended for that game on Sunday, assuming that technical does not get rescinded. But just for the sake of making this easier on all of our brains, let's assume that Warriors lose Sunday and Minnesota wins. Minnesota would be the 6th, the Warriors would be the 7, which means the Warriors have to play in the play-in game. As the 7 seed, though, in the play-in, you get to host the 8 seed. The 8 seed is officially the Memphis Grizzlies. If the Warriors win in that play-in game, the 7 versus 8, they are the 7 seed, and they would get the Houston Rockets in the first round. Then if they lose to Memphis in that play-in game, they would then take on the winner of the 9-10 play-in game, which is the Kings and the Dallas Mavericks. If the Warriors win that game, then they're the 8 seed, and they would take on OKC in the first round. So the easiest way to think of it is you have 3 shots at a home game to go to the playoffs. You win the first one, you're the 6, and you take on the Lakers. You win the second one, you're the 7, you take on the Rockets. You win the third one, you're the 8, and you take on OKC. Now, there is clearly a hierarchy in terms of the teams that you would rather play. Definitely, it's OKC last, and that coincides with you having to play more basketball games. There is probably a way of thinking that suggests you'd rather have Houston than the Lakers, and I would understand that. I'm not going to argue with you there necessarily, but I just want nothing to do with the risk of a one-off play-in game. So if I'm the Warriors, and I'm sure the team feels this way, but if I'm the Warriors and I'm giving you Warrior fans advice out there, don't play with your food. Just win on Sunday, be the 6th seed, take on the challenge of the Lakers, take a whole week off, and not have to worry about the play-in tournament. All right, 888-957-9570. Plenty scenarios to get into here with you on Warriors Wrap-Up. Mark Randy with you. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, or you're curious about how the tiebreakers work, or you want to test out one scenario or the other, we will work through all of it live here tonight on Warriors Wrap-Up. I do see a text that just came in right as I was taking the air, 888-957-9570 to call and to text. And before I even address this one concern, from the text line. Let's just really quickly recap what happened in this basketball game. 103-86 Warriors. A little bit of a slow start. They trailed 20-14 early. They then dominated the rest of that first quarter. They ultimately went on a 12-0 run to close the first quarter. Buddy Hield was big in the first half. Jimmy Butler was big in the second half, particularly in the fourth quarter, where he scored 9 of his 24 points in the fourth. A big reason why Steph did not have to play in the entire fourth was because Jimmy kind of took over in that fourth quarter. There was a little bit of a scare with Steph, who jammed his right thumb on his shooting hand, a thumb that has been bothering him for a decent stretch this season. He jammed it on a knee of a defender, briefly went to the locker room, got it x-rayed. The Warriors announced that he was questionable to return. The x-rays, though, came back negative, and he basically didn't miss any time that he normally wouldn't. He went to the locker room when he normally would be on the bench, returned to the bench, and then immediately kind of came back into the game in his normal rotation pattern. So really didn't really miss any time that he wouldn't have otherwise. So a little bit of a scare. He came back in the game, got it taped up. It's something to keep an eye on, of course, on Sunday. It has been bothering him for a while, but it seems like the Warriors avoided anything major with Steph Curry, which, given it's this time of the year, that is absolutely imperative. Okay, so a big game for Jimmy, and a big first half for Buddy Hield. You got to see everybody play. It was good to see Quentin Post back. It was good to see GP2 back. Quentin Post made a couple of threes, scored 10 points. You got 10 off the bench from Jonathan Kuminga. I really liked Kuminga getting to the free throw line in this one. He took after Jimmy Butler, who got to the free throw line 11 times. You got 14 from Steph, 10 from Pajemski. Good to see him get a couple of threes to fall late in that game as well. Moody hit a couple of threes. So plenty to talk about there. It really was a defensive game. The Warriors just absolutely controlled Memphis on offense, Portland on offense, and Portland didn't really have any of their normal players playing. So not terribly surprising that Portland only scored 86 points and shot just 37.6% from the field. Okay, let me address something from the text line. The 650 sent this out just as I was taking the air. The 650 writes, the Clippers won tonight, so the nightmare situation will unfold when the Nuggets and the Timberwolves win on Sunday. If the Warriors win over the Clippers, it creates a three-way tie. The tiebreaker favors the Timberwolves and the Clippers. 650, you are right all the way until the very end. Clippers won tonight. They barely held on in Sacramento versus the Kings. They tried their best to blow it, but they held on 101-100. So the Clippers right now are a game ahead of the Warriors and a game ahead of the Timberwolves. If the Warriors beat the Clippers on Sunday, there's a tie there at 49-33 would be the tie. And let's also assume Minnesota against Utah, who probably is more interested in losing. Let's say that Minnesota also beats Utah. That would be a three-way tie at 49-32, right? Warriors beat the Clippers. That's a Warriors win and a Clippers loss. Minnesota wins. Three-way tie. This also assumes that Denver wins because Denver is a game ahead of the Warriors. Denver is taking on Houston. Houston has rested basically all of their key guys the last two games. I would imagine it will be at least something similar on Sunday. So this assumes Warriors beat the Clippers, which means the Clippers lost, of course. Minnesota beats Utah, expected. Denver beats Houston, expected. Okay. If that happens, it's a three-way tie, as the 650 points out. Minnesota, Warriors, Clippers, all tied with a record of 49-33. How does that three-way tiebreaker play out? This is where you're wrong, 650. Minnesota wins that three-way tiebreaker. The Warriors come in second in that three-way tiebreaker, and it is the Clippers that finished last in that three-way tiebreaker, and that tie is from 5 through 7. So Minnesota would be the 5, the Warriors would be the 6, and the Clippers would be the 7. Now, there is some good news mixed in there, and there's some bad news mixed in there, because what that guarantees is if the Warriors win on Sunday, they are the 6th seed no matter what. You win, you are a playoff team. Nobody can take that away from you. But what that tiebreaker also means is that the Clippers have everything to play for too. Because the Clippers, if they lose and Minnesota wins, they are the 7 seed. So this isn't just the Clippers playing for maybe the 4 or the 5 or the 6. No, the Clippers have a reality where they are the 7th seed, and it's not that difficult to see. Warriors beat the Clippers on Sunday. Minnesota beats Utah. The Clippers are the 7, okay? So the Clippers have everything to play for. That's the bad news, because the Clippers are not going to be resting anybody on Sunday because they want to avoid the play-in as well. So there's a little bit of good and a little bit of bad news mixed in the result of that three-way tiebreaker. Because the Warriors, with a win no matter what, are a playoff team, but the Clippers also are going to have every motivation to win that basketball game in order to avoid the play-in tournament as well. Because if they lose to the Warriors, the way that they have to avoid the play-in is rooting for Minnesota to lose, and Minnesota is very, very, very likely, even without Anthony Edwards, who again picked up the magical number technical foul today, technical foul number 16 or 18, whatever it is, he is going to be suspended, assuming that tech does not get rescinded. The T-Wolves might, ask for a review on that, but if it does not get rescinded, he will not play on Sunday. It's Utah, though. Minnesota should still be able to win without Anthony Edwards. But the Clippers, we were thinking maybe they might have the 5 locked up, depending on how things go. They might have a top 6 seed locked up. No, they do not have a playoff spot locked up. They could be anywhere from the 4 to the 7. The 5 is still most likely for the Clippers, but they could very well be the 7, and it's not that difficult to see it happening. The only coin flip game there's only one coin flip result that has to happen in order for the Clippers to be the 7. If the Warriors beat the Clippers and everything else goes the way it's expected to, the Clippers are the 7 seed. So the Clippers are coming into Chase Center on Sunday with everything on the line, just like the Warriors are. This is essentially a play-in game, is the easiest way to think about it. Warriors win, they're a playoff team. Clippers win, they're a playoff team. If the Warriors lose or the Clippers lose, one of those is going to happen. They're probably a play-in team. That is the way that this is going to work. So there's a lot on the line for both these teams. It's going to make for a hell of a basketball game on Sunday. And we'll have all the action, of course, right here at 12:30 on 95.7 The Game. Tip-off is at 12:30. I've got you covered on Warriors pregame, on Warriors Live. And because it is such a big day, instead of a half-hour Warriors Live on Sunday morning, I'm going to have you for a full hour live from Splash at Thrive City. 11 a.m. I'll be on the air, taking you up until noon, live from Splash. And I recommend stopping by Splash. You can say what's up, grab yourself something to eat or drink before you head into Chase, or you can just watch the game at Splash. If you're not at Chase, I think Splash the second best spot to watch a Warrior game. But a full hour of pregame coming up on Sunday ahead of that game that tips off at 12:30. Okay, so all that out of the way, essentially the easiest way to think about this is Warriors, you win, you're the 6. You lose, you're very, very, very likely going to be the 7. But even if you are the 7, you then have another chance on Tuesday. You beat Memphis, you're in the playoffs as the 7 seed. You lose that game, you have one more shot. You win against either Sacramento or Dallas, whoever comes out of that 9-10 play-in game. And then you are going to be the 8 seed if you win that game, and then you get to take on OKC. 3 play-in games for the Warriors, 3 shots at home to make the postseason. And given where the Warriors were a couple of months ago, before they acquired Jimmy Butler, if you would have told me, April 13th, Sunday, April 13th, final day of the regular season, and the Warriors had a win and you're the 6 seed scenario on the table, I would take that before you even had the opportunity to take it back. That would be a dream given where the Warriors were. So, I mean, I know we focus on the loss to the Spurs and maybe even the loss to the Rockets and all of that. And I hear you. That Spurs loss particularly was pretty frustrating. But if you were to tell me the Warriors had a shot at the 6 seed and all they had to do was win the final game of the regular season, I would absolutely take it. I would take it. And yeah, it is the Clippers. Clippers are a challenging team. They haven't lost to the Warriors yet this year. They're 3-0 versus the Warriors, and Kawhi hadn't played in any of those 3. But hey, you know what? Clippers haven't seen the Warriors with Jimmy Butler either, and with Jimmy Butler, this is a really, really good Warriors team. The Warriors with Jimmy Butler, since he debuted, are now 23-7, 23-6 when he plays. They're 22-4 when Steph and Jimmy play, and they're 16-2 with his starting lineup. So, all right, lace them up. Game on. Game on. I can't wait for Sunday. It is going to be awesome. All right. 888-957-9570, reacting to this Warrior win in Portland. In a night like this, the game itself doesn't really matter all that much. This is a Portland team that is done for the year. A lot of guys on the injury report with, kind of technically real injuries, but not really. I just don't want to get any serious damage done to somebody for a team that has no chance of any postseason. So they're not playing basically anybody. This was a win for the Warriors, 103-86, and it wasn't really that difficult. So we can talk about the game. I'm down for anything, but I'm plenty good to talk about all these postseason scenarios and how it all plays out, because I think I got all the answers for you. You can test me. Let me know. I'll get you the answer. But essentially, Warriors win, and they're the 6, and Warriors lose, and they're going to be the 7 unless Minnesota loses to Utah. Okay, 888-957-9570. Plenty of time for your calls. I'll get to some of your texts and the YouTube comments in just a little bit. But first is Roberto in Santa Rosa. Roberto, get us started. How you doing, Roberto?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. Nice Warrior win, and they keep the hope alive for the 6th seed, huh?
Yes. It was a very what a lovely time it's been. Yeah, I'm here in the wine country. It's Sonoma County. It's always nice to spend this time with all of you, the world of the Warriors here with all of you.
Yeah. Hey, Roberto, shout out to the 707. That's my neck of the woods up there.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. I've been here since the Beatles were still together, even though I was born in Tucson. But,
oh, wow.
So I've lived here by the grace of God. So I wanted to say, forgive my ignorance then. So I'm just going to throw out a couple of quick scenarios. Because I guess I actually, what I called for is you pretty much spoke on it right now, but I'm still a little confused. So forgive my ignorance. But
you're good.
Okay, so let's put this out there. So I'm thinking, I was going to ask you, so in the tiebreaker scenario, do the Clippers have a better record than the Warriors?
So tiebreaker? in just the Clippers Warriors head to head, if it's just a two-way tie between the Clippers and the Warriors, yes, the Clippers win that head to head because they're 3-1 versus the Warriors. But Roberto, it all changes if you add a third team in there. For example, if you add Minnesota in, which is the likely scenario, Minnesota versus the Clippers this year are 3-0. So that just drastically sways the way a three-way tiebreaker works because it's just cumulative record versus all three teams tied. If it's just the Warriors and the Clippers, Clippers win that. But you throw Minnesota in there, Minnesota wins it, Warriors finish second, Clippers finish third.
Okay, so my question then is, but doesn't the Warriors have a better record head-to-head with Minnesota?
Yes, but okay, so I'm gonna just read these numbers off to you. So Warriors versus Minnesota are 3-1. Okay, Warriors versus the Clippers are 0-3. Although in this scenario, the Warriors would beat the Clippers, so that would be 1-3, which means the Warriors versus Minnesota and the Clippers are 4-4. Right, Roberto? That makes sense so far?
Okay. Yeah, it does.
Now Minnesota versus the Warriors and the Clippers. Minnesota is 3-0 versus the Clippers, and they are 1-3 versus the Warriors. Add those two up, and you have a 4-3 Minnesota cumulative record, right?
Yes.
Okay, and that's better than the 4-4 Warriors cumulative record. And then you go to the Clippers. The Clippers versus the Warriors, again, are 3-0 currently, but we're assuming a loss for the Clippers on Sunday, which makes that 3-1. And then they are 0-3 versus Minnesota, which means their cumulative record would be 3-4, which is worse than both Minnesota's and the Warriors' cumulative records, which is why they finished third and would be seventh in that three-way tiebreaker scenario.
Wow, I appreciate your knowledge. That was incredible. Okay, because the reason I was calling was to say I thought the Clippers really didn't have anything more to play for since they're going to beat if they did beat the Warriors, or even if they lost to the Warriors, they have a better record than the Warriors, so they would stay in the fifth seed. But now you're saying with all you just spoke about, they could literally easily fall to 7.
Yes. The addition of a third team to the tie, like for example, Roberto, let's say the Warriors beat the Clippers on Sunday and then Minnesota loses. So it's not a three-way tie anymore. It's only a two-way tie. The Clippers would be fifth and the Warriors would be sixth, because the two-way tiebreaker is just the head-to-head record versus the Warriors and the Clippers, and that's 3-1 in favor of the Clippers. But you add in a team like Minnesota, and it just changes the whole equation.
Wow, that's stunning. Okay. Yes, well, then that's definitely, this is the end all. That game is the end all because, like you said, I mean, for the most part, we really don't want the Warriors to be that play, and that's ridiculous. I mean, as good as they've been all year, and hopefully, we're trying to get them to be the champions again. That's just going to waste so much more energy that's not necessary. So I guess we can hope for the best is all I can say, right?
Yes. Yes, well said, Roberto. And thanks for the call, and shout out to everybody up there in the 707, my neck of the woods. Shout out to Windsor, my hometown. But yeah, I saw a lot of this on Twitter, and I saw this on social media. Clippers might not have much to play for on Sunday, and of course, now we know officially that they don't, but there was always this possibility. And even if they couldn't be the 7, I think they'd want to be the 4, right? They'd want to be the 4 and have home court and take on Denver in the first round and be the home team in games 1 and 2 and potentially have a home game 7. And even if the 4 wasn't possible, I'd rather be the 5 and not the 6. I'd rather play Denver if I'm the Clippers than LA, the Lakers, considering Denver is, without a head coach and everything going on there. So even if the Clippers couldn't fall to the 7, I think they'd still have a lot to play for, but they can fall to the 7. And there is still a lot on the table for all of these teams, specifically Nuggets, Clippers, Warriors, Minnesota. There is so much going on there, and specifically the Warriors and the Clippers, who have a head-to-head game on Sunday. Winner of that game is a playoff team. Loser of that game, it's not 100%, but very likely loser of that game on Sunday is going to be the number 7 seed. That relies on Minnesota beating Utah. Minnesota likely without Anthony Edwards because of a suspension, because he picked up the magic number of technicals today. They can, review that. They might ask for that technical to be rescinded. I would imagine the league will not do that. And Edwards likely will not play on Sunday, but even without Anthony Edwards, Utah probably is still going to lose to Minnesota. If that happens, that means the loser of Warriors, Clippers on Sunday will be the 7. So both these teams still have a ton to play for. All right. 888-957-9570. Mark Randy with you here on 95.7 The Game on Warriors Wrap Up. Let's go to Jimmy in Bayview. Jimmy, what's up? You're on Warriors Wrap Up. How you doing?
Hey, champ. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, what a crazy year that you could have, 50 wins and be the 6th seed. But, the Warriors have really backed. I mean, this was a JV game, more or less. And some guys, need to get rolling. It was nice to see Post play well. A lot of other guys did not. But the Warriors have backed themselves in a corner. They seem to be a team that plays to the level of their competition, so they could, which bodes well in the playoffs, if they play well against good teams. But yeah, they've played poorly against some bad teams. So they don't play well against the Clippers. And another must win. It seems like there's been so many of them, but what an incredible year in the West. Just so many tough teams where, like, the Knicks would be like the 7th seed, where they're or maybe even the 8th, where they're the 3rd seed in the East. But yeah, just Sunday's going to be exciting, and I hope the Warriors come to play. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate the call, and thanks for calling me champ. I always love that. But yeah, this Western Conference is wild. So there is, we do have a little bit more of a clear picture of the Western Conference standings right now. The Lakers have officially locked up the 3, so they are awaiting whoever the 6 is. OKC is the one we know that. We've known that for a long time. Houston, we've known that for like a week now. They're the 2. The Lakers are officially the 3. Denver can be no lower than the 5. They're going to be either the 4 or the 5. The Warriors are going to be the 6 or the 7. The Clippers can be the 5 or the 7. And Minnesota can be either the 6 or the 7. That is how, actually, the Minnesota can be the 5 or the 7. That is how this is playing out. But you know the top 3 seeds, OKC, Houston, Lakers. That's the top 3. And then you get into the chaos of Denver at 49 wins, Clippers at 49 wins, Warriors at 48 wins, Minnesota at 48 wins, then Memphis at 47 wins. Memphis is locked into the 8 now. They are the 8, which means they are going to travel to wherever, whichever team is the 7, either the Clippers, the Warriors, or the T-Wolves. They're going to travel to one of those venues to play the 7-8 game on Tuesday. Winner of that game will be the 7 and will take on Houston. Loser of that game will play the winner of Sacramento and Dallas. And winner of that game then takes on OKC as the 8 seed in the first round. There are still so many moving parts and pieces in this one. And the games today, really, other than the Warriors and the T-Wolves games, I guess the Lakers as well, but we didn't really care as much about the Lakers game. They were competitive. Clippers, Kings came down to the final second. Nuggets, Grizzlies was really competitive. The Grizzlies led for like the entire game until the final 2 minutes when the Nuggets pulled away. These games came down to the wire, and I was, updating my standings and the different permutations and the different scenarios until the very last second because you didn't know how these games were going to go. I have a couple of texts coming in on the text line, and I also see our calls. I will get to you guys in a sec. We do have to hit a break in a minute, so if you are on hold, hang on hold. I will get to you right when we come back. But the 925 says the Clippers should still be ahead of the Timberwolves since the Warriors are. It makes no logical sense. The tiebreaker scenario also asks, why is a 3-way tiebreaker so different from head-to-head? Well, it really is just the same thing. It's just on a 2-way tie, the head-to-head is only that one matchup, right? Warriors versus Clippers. Clippers are currently 3-0. There's still one more game left. And in order for the Warriors and Clippers to be tied, the Warriors have to win that game. So just for the sake of making this easier to understand, let's assume the Warriors win that game Sunday, and it's a 3-1 Clippers head-to-head advantage over the Warriors. The way that it changes is you just add a third team into that 3-way tiebreaker, and instead of a head-to-head that you only have to look to one other team, you have to look to 2 other teams. It's the cumulative head-to-head. If it's Warriors, Clippers, and T-Wolves, you have to consider the records of all of those teams versus each other. And because the Minnesota Clippers tiebreak is the Minnesota Clippers head-to-head is so one-sided, 3-0 in favor of Minnesota, right? Yeah, 3-0 in favor of Minnesota. Because that's so dramatically one-sided, it just shifts everything. It takes the Clippers from beating the Warriors in a head-to-head in a single 2-team tie. It takes them from winning that, you add Minnesota in, and suddenly the Clippers lose that. That's the power of a 3-team tiebreaker, and the Warriors are the beneficiary because they don't finish last in that. Although, really, I mean, they're also 3-1 versus Minnesota, the Warriors are. So they're kind of just right there in the middle of it anyway, and it's just the other 2 teams that are kind of jockeying for position around them. The Warriors are playing for the 6. If they win, they're the 6. If the Clippers lose and Minnesota wins, they're the 7. But the difference in a 2-way head-to-head and a 3-way head-to-head is just that you have an extra team you have to account for in terms of the wins and losses against. It's the same idea. Head-to-head, cumulative record, but the cumulative record has more of an ability to vary when you have a third or a fourth team added in there. It's why Denver and Minnesota being involved in any tiebreakers is crazy, because Minnesota is 4-0 versus Denver this year. The Warriors are kind of in this sweet spot where almost no matter the tiebreaker, they finish in the middle because they are either, they're really good against some and they're kind of bad against others, and they're kind of right there in the middle on average. But you have a Denver team who's 4 or 0-4 versus Minnesota, and the Warriors know if they're involved in a tiebreaker with those teams, they're going to be in this happy middle, which generally is going to be the 6, because these tiebreakers go all the way from like the 4 seed or the 5 seed down to the 7. And if the Warriors are just the 6, hey, that's a playoff spot. That's the way it works in the Western Conference this year. It's really interesting. Okay, time for a break here on Warriors Wrap Up. I'll get to the phones when we come back. Dubs win in Portland, setting up a win and you're in scenario on Sunday versus the Clippers. More to get into coming up next here on 95.7 The Game.
Looking for lifelong financial guidance?
Key over the shoulder to Moody, left corner to Hield, hits a three, and it's money in the bank for Golden State.
Now back to Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
Welcome back. Warriors get a win, a much-needed win in Portland. Didn't really matter how this one played out. You just had to get the win, and the Warriors did that 103-86 in Portland. The win keeps hope alive, realistic hope alive for the six. If the Warriors had lost today, they still could be the six. They would not be eliminated from a top six seed. They would just need to win Sunday, and they would need Minnesota to lose. But the win tonight keeps the Warriors control of their own destiny. Warriors win on Sunday. They are going to be the sixth seed. There is still a ton of movement that can go on around them in the West, but for the Warriors, it's very simple. Warriors are the six, or they're the seven. That is it for the Golden State Warriors. And if you're the seven, you could ultimately end up being the 7 seed or being the 8 seed. But at the end of the regular season, the Warriors will be the 6 or they will be the 7. I was talking about some of the other movement around the West. There's one thing I did want to correct. I think the Clipper or the Nuggets are locked at either the 4 or the 5. They could be either the 4 or the 5. They could also be the 7 if you believe it or not. How the hell is that possible? Well, again, it is some of the madness that happens when you get 3- and 4-way ties, okay? And shout out to Pierce Evans, who was going back and forth with me on the YouTube chat about this during the commercial break. Pierce might be the only person here more prepared for all these tiebreaker scenarios than I am. We've been helping each other out all day with it. But let's play this scenario out. Denver, who is playing Houston. They're in Houston. Houston does not have anything to play for. They haven't played the majority of their starters the last 2 games. I would imagine they will continue that trend on Sunday. So it's probably going to be a Denver win. But for the sake of madness, let's assume Houston beats Denver. Okay? Denver loses. They're 49-33. Warriors beat the Clippers. Both of those teams would be 49-33. And then Minnesota beats Utah, which is expected. They're 49-33. Now we have a 4-way tie from the 4 seed to the 7 seed. Those 4 teams are Denver, the Clippers, the Warriors, and the T-Wolves. In that 4-way tiebreaker scenario, it plays out like this. Again, Denver right now is the 4. And if they finish in a 4-way tie beginning at the 4 with themselves, the Clippers, the Warriors, and the T-Wolves, Denver would be the 7 seed. That's how crazy the Western Conference is, because you have the wildness. I was just talking about this on the other side of our break. You have the wildness of a 4-0 mark for Minnesota versus Denver. And that is just, it sways everything so heavily. In that 4-way tie between the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Warriors, and the T-Wolves, Minnesota wins the 4-way tie. They would be the 4 seed. The Clippers finish 2nd. They would be the 5 seed. The Warriors finish 3rd. They would be the 6 seed. Denver finishes 4th in that tiebreaker. They would be the 7. So Denver could be the 7 seed. Minnesota can be the 4 seed, and it's not crazy difficult to see that playing out. The only thing that kind of has to happen in a major upset fashion is a Houston team likely not playing their starters beating Denver. Warriors beat Clippers. That's kind of a coin flip. Minnesota beats Utah. That is expected. That's all that has to happen for Minnesota to be the 4 and the Clippers to be the 7. That is how wild the Western Conference is right now. Now, for the Warriors' sake, maybe you're upset that they don't have the ability to climb up to the 4 or to the 5, but they're just chilling in all these scenarios. They're chilling as the 6. They kind of are middle of the pack in these tie-breaking scenarios. They don't have like the heavy 4-0 record versus one team, and they don't have the heavy 0-4 record versus the other team. Like, they're just chilling in the middle, and they are really the beneficiary of that.
I'll take that with me. But
they are the beneficiary of that, and apologies for that. They are the beneficiary of kind of just being in this middle area. Don't have room to move up the standings, but as long as they win, despite all of this movement around them, they still are going to be the 6 if they win. And if they lose, they're likely the 7 unless Minnesota loses. Crazy. Someone does mention on the text line from the 925, so they could have secured the 6th with a win versus the Spurs. Yes, they would be essentially locked in, I believe, because they would be in a tie with Denver and the Clippers, a game ahead of Minnesota. And even if they lose to the Clippers and you have a tiebreaker that includes a tie that includes Denver and Minnesota, the Warriors would not lose that tiebreaker and they'd still be the 6. So don't quote me on that, 925, but I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty positive the Warriors would have a top 6 seed locked in if they had beaten the Spurs earlier this week. Okay. As promised, back out to the phones, 888-957-9570. E. Salim is in Chicago, and he joins us now here on Warriors Wrap-Up. What's up, E. Salim?
What's going on, my man? Hey, I appreciate all the articulation that you're doing with us. It's lovely just to see somebody with mathematics that understands how this thing is going, these scenarios, because, man, I've been trying to figure out how this works. I thought it was about conferences. I'm looking at the conferences and seeing who has the best record. So I definitely appreciate that. And I just want to say, man, go Dubs, man. We was 25-26, and now look at us now, you know. Coming away from Chicago, I love the Warriors. I'm a Bulls fan also, but the Warriors is like my second team, and I've been rocking with the Warriors since 2015, so it's just good to see the Warriors doing their thing despite everything that's happening. I'm just appreciative that you giving us all this input on how it works, man. So kudos to that. You kind of answered my question too, as far as the four teams, because I was confused about that part. If Denver was to lose like the Warriors lost to the Spurs last game, anything could happen. Where I thought the Warriors might end up 7th seed if every team ended up with the same record. So I appreciate you answered my question while I was waiting. But man, you're doing a great job. So I appreciate that, and that's what I really want to get on here and just let you know. Because it's a lot of shows out here, like Golden Days. I don't know about that guy, but he's always complaining about Steve Kerr and the team. I'm like, I want to know about the scenarios and what's going on with the scenarios so we can figure this thing out so we can get this championship, another ring. So kudos to that, my man. Kudos.
Hey, I appreciate that, Islam. Thank you for the kind words all the way out in Chicago. And shout out to you listening all the way out here on the West Coast of 95.7 The Game. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I've been pouring through these scenarios for quite a while because, I mean, it's looked pretty clear that it was going to come down to something mad like it is for like the last month. Like you could tell it was gonna come pretty close. And, you just scratch the surface when you look at the tie-breaking scenarios, right? And you just assume like two-way ties and you kind of don't think about three-way tiebreakers or four-way tiebreakers. But if you're looking at just like the NBA tie-breaking scenario, just a generic two-way team, a two-way tiebreaker, right? It's pretty simple. Just head-to-head. Did you go 3-1 versus that team? If so, you get the tiebreaker there. But okay, you say you're 2-2 versus that team. How does the tiebreaker work then? Did you win your division? Yeah, okay, the other team didn't. Then, okay, you get the tiebreaker. But if neither team won a division or both teams won a division, what's the tiebreaker after that? Division 1 loss percentage, that's only if you're in the same division. If you're not in the same division, then it jumps down to conference 1 loss percentage. And that's what Isalim was talking about. Is it the conference record that's going to determine this? But that is, again, only on a two-way tie. On a three-way tie, you start all the way over again at that record versus each other. Better winning percentage in all games among the teams tied. Cumulative record versus the tied teams. And not just who has the most wins, who has the fewest losses, but winning percentage. So, for example, the Warriors get the benefit, again, that scenario that we laid out earlier, which I think is the most likely scenario. If the Warriors win, this is by far the most likely scenario. The Warriors beat the Clippers on Sunday. Minnesota also wins. That's very likely. In terms of likely scenarios, that's probably the likeliest, at least when you consider a Warriors win. We assume that part. Minnesota 4-3 in the cumulative record versus those three teams, right? Minnesota, Warriors, Clippers. They're 4-3. The Warriors are 4-4. The Clippers are 3-4. And again, those numbers assume a Warriors win versus the Clippers in order to make that three-way tie happen. The Warriors played an extra game in the head-to-head than the Clippers did, right? They played Minnesota 4 times. The Clippers only played Minnesota 3 times. Warriors get bailed out by that extra game against Minnesota and the extra win against Minnesota, that they have a 500 record in that cumulative head-to-head. The Clippers are 3-4, sub 500, a worse winning percentage because they only played 7 games. The Warriors played 8. So they kind of get bailed out. But on the other end, Minnesota also only played 7 in that cumulative tiebreaker. If they played another and they would happen to have lost, they would be 4-4. The Warriors would be 4-4. And then, you figure out the tiebreaker from there. But it comes down to simple things like, were you scheduled 1 extra game versus this team? And did you win that extra game or did you lose that extra game? It is as intricate as that. That's the way the NBA tiebreaking scenario works. And then it gets even crazier when you have a 4th team added in there. Like the swings for 4-team tiebreakers are absolutely insane. The way that this all played out, though, a 4-way tiebreaker isn't that likely. The way it happens is what we were talking about right at the beginning of this segment, where Denver loses to Houston, which is possible, but I wouldn't bet on it considering Houston hasn't played really any of their starters other than Jalen Green the last 2 games. And then the Warriors win and the T-Wolves win. That's a 4-way tie, and the Warriors are still safe in the 6th seed in that tiebreaker as well. In terms of likely scenarios, right? There's so many crazy scenarios that could be played out. But in terms of likely scenarios, here's the most likely, right? I just laid it out. Warriors win, Minnesota wins. Warriors are the 6. Minnesota's the 5. Clippers are the 7. Okay? That's one likely scenario. The other most likely scenario is Warriors lose, Minnesota also wins, right? Because Warriors-Clippers is going to be a coin flip of a game, right? I would imagine it's going to be pretty darn competitive. It's going to have the environment of a playoff game, and you can hear it all, of course, right here on 95.7 The Game. If the Warriors win, I just laid out that scenario, assuming Minnesota also wins, Minnesota 5, Warriors 6, Clippers 7. If the Warriors lose, the only way they're the 6 is if Minnesota also loses. But it's likely that Minnesota will win even without Ant, who's probably going to be suspended because he picked up that magic number technical fouls. The league might rescind it. I would imagine they're not. Minnesota's probably going to plead with the league and hope that they do. I would be surprised if they do. So no Ant most likely on Sunday. Still, I think Minnesota wins. So the other likely scenario is Warriors lose Sunday to the Clippers. Minnesota wins. That outcome is the Warriors are 7th and they get to host Memphis on Tuesday in a play-in game. That's the way that this is shaping out. Those are the two most likely scenarios, right? Minnesota's likely going to win. It's either Warriors win or Warriors lose. Warriors win, you're the 6. Warriors lose, you're the 7. There are some other scenarios. Again, when you factor in Minnesota losing, when you factor in Denver losing, they get added into the tiebreaker, right? There's other ways that this could go down, but more than likely, Minnesota will win, Denver will win, and it's just going to be Warriors win or Clippers win. Winner of that game is going to be a playoff team. Loser of that game is going to be in the play-in. It's as simple as that. The 925 on our text line at 888-957-9570. Crazy where they were pre-Jimmy and now win and they're 6th. Got to be the best outcome. Yeah. I mean, again, if you were to ask me when this trade went down, what was it, like February 8th when it officially was finalized, or February 6th or whatever it was, and the Warriors were a game under 500, and they were fighting for not just a play-in spot, but the last play-in spot. Like they were the 11 seed at one point, right around when the trade went down. And you would tell me, going into the final day of the regular season, the Warriors would have a win and you're the 6th seed scenario. I would have accepted that in a split second. It is amazing how the Warriors have turned this thing around. Again, these numbers are astounding, even with some of the most recent losses, right? The loss against the Rockets and the loss against the Spurs. And it's so easy now to look back at it and say, man, if they had just beat the Spurs, you wouldn't have to beat the Clippers. But when you look at this from a wide lens of the last 2 months, you can really appreciate what this team has done. In the Jimmy Butler era, right, since he debuted that fateful day in Chicago versus the Bulls in early February, when he made his Warrior debut, since that moment, the Warriors are 23-7. When Jimmy Butler plays, remember he missed one game in Philadelphia and the Warriors lost that game. When Jimmy Butler plays, the Warriors are 23-6. When both Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler play, the Warriors are 22-4. And with the starting lineup of Steph Curry, Brandon Pajemski, Jimmy Butler, Moses Moody, and Draymond Green, the Warriors are 16-2. They had to be that good in order to make this possible. And by the way, they have to make those numbers, right? 24-7 in the Jimmy era, 24-6 when he plays, 23-4 when Steph and Jimmy play, and 17-2 with that starting 5, because that's the only way that they can guarantee themselves a 6th seed. Like, it's going to have to take this pretty historic run just to get to the 6th. And that does not make it necessarily a failure if they don't. It just means they dug themselves too big of a hole early in the year. Like, that's really what this is. We can point to the San Antonio loss, and it's what's right in our heads, and I hear you. That was frustrating as hell. If you just beat San Antonio, you're going to be the 6th seed in all likelihood, no questions asked, based on what happens on Sunday. But we also forget about so many of the other games the Warriors had earlier this year, right? I mean, I can just run through the schedule and we can reminisce together about some of the really rough endings this team has had this year. in San Antonio in November. The next game at home versus Brooklyn, they had big leads late in the third, early in the fourth in both of those games. They had a really rough loss in Denver in early December. They led by like 8 with 2 minutes left or something like that, and they lost that game. What else? They had a couple of other rough ones, and I don't mean to bring up all these bad memories. The Lakers game on Christmas Day was a rough one. Steph's heroics didn't matter because Austin Reeves scored at the buzzer. They had a couple of other really, really tough losses. Toronto on the road. They led that game for the majority of the way, and then they lost that one. Sacramento, late January, in Sacramento. They had a lead and could not score down the stretch, and they lose that game. I could keep on going. There's a lot. And we can point to the San Antonio game at home earlier this week, and that's what's going to be fresh in our minds. But I can't blame... If the Warriors happen to lose on Sunday and it's a competitive game and they play hard and they play well, I can't blame not being a playoff team on what this team has done in the Jimmy Butler era. I can blame what happened earlier in the season. Again, these numbers, 23-7 since Jimmy debuted. 23-6 when he plays. 22-4 when Steph and Jimmy play. And 16-2 with that starting five. Like, been pretty darn impressive. And it's a testament to how good the West is, honestly, that hasn't been enough to already lock up a top 6 seed. I mean, the Warriors win on Sunday. They're a 49-win team, and they're going to be the 6th best team in the West record-wise. This reminds me of, what year was it? The 2008 Western Conference standings? The year after We Believe? Right, the Warriors were We Believe. They snuck in as the 8th seed, and they upset the Mavericks in the first round. And then the next year, the year after We Believe, the 2007-2008 year, the Warriors won 48 games. The Warriors currently have 48 wins right now. If the Warriors lose on Sunday, they'll be 48-34, just like that 07-08 Warriors team was. 48 wins, and the Warriors were the 9 seed. So I guess the West could be worse. It could be more difficult. The Warriors right now are staring at 49 as the magic number to get to the 6. The Warriors had 48 in 08 and were the 9. Even if they were a 49-win team, they would have not made the playoffs. It's hard to find a year where the West has been as competitive as it is this year. You got to go back to like 08. And the difference then is you didn't have like this crazy dominant team at the very top. The Lakers were 57-25 in 08, only 1 game up on the Hornets, 1 game up on the Spurs, 3 games up on the Jazz, a couple up on the Rockets and Suns, right? Like it was a really competitive West. You have, in addition to the really deep nature of the West this year, you have like elite, one of the best teams of all time in the OKC Thunder. It is crazy how good this Western Conference is right now. All right, 888-957-9570. I got a text from the 925 asking about Sunday's game. I'll get into that in a little bit, but first we got to hear from Warriors head coach Steve Kerr, who has addressed the media postgame in Portland after this Warriors win. Steve Kerr, Warriors knock off the Blazers again by a final score of 103-86. Warriors essentially have a play-in game Sunday, win and you're the 6, lose and in all likelihood you're the 7. If you lose, you have another chance to win and in as the 7 in the actual play-in tournament versus Memphis. And then if you lose that, you have another opportunity to win and in against either the Kings or the Mavericks as the 8, and you get to take on OKC. All 3 of those games at home, so the Warriors have 3 home shots to make the postseason. Considering where they were in early February, I'll take it. All right, here's Warriors head coach Steve Kerr addressing the media postgame in Portland.
Mike Dunleavy just said we have 3 potential home games to get into the playoffs. I think that's a good way of looking at it. We beat the Clippers, we're in. If not, beat Memphis, we're in. If not, we got one more crack. We're in a great spot, and obviously we don't want to mess around and go to the play-in, but we're in a really good spot. So considering where we were 2 months ago, Mike makes the Jimmy trade. I think we're like 23-7 since then. We've skyrocketed up the standings, and but we're right in this, morass with all these other teams, and so we are where we are. We're in a good spot. We're excited about what's ahead, and we gotta go do it.
Steph looked like he kind of jammed his thumb there in the first quarter. Do you have any update on that?
I don't.
They had X-rays, they were negative.
What are your, early thoughts on the Clippers? I know you probably don't really have time or ability at this point to, scheme it out, but you know who they are.
Yeah, we know them well. They're a great team, great two-way team. I think they added to their team at the trade deadline, and they're playing at a really high level right now. So I think they're one of the best teams in the league. So we got to go out and play a good game to get them.
It's a 12:30 tip Sunday. You're on the road now. I don't know if you'll will you get a practice in tomorrow?
No, day off tomorrow. I think the rest is more important.
So probably kind of a walkthrough?
Yeah, walkthrough Sunday morning and right to it.
Feel comfortable with that? I
Sure.
guess
it is what it is. So yeah, we've had playoff games that started at 12:30. So you just adapt.
How valuable would getting the 6th seed be, compared to having to go through the playing rounds?
I mean, the rest would be great. The preparation would be great. So you absolutely want to win that game and, keep things simple. But like I said, we got multiple possibilities here. And the fact that we are in this spot, 48 wins with 1 to go, given where we were midseason, I'm really proud of the team, the whole group. They've just gone on a phenomenal run here last couple months.
Blazers still have some size despite missing some guys tonight.
I'm sorry?
Blazers still have size despite missing guys tonight.
Yeah.
How do you feel about your smaller units with Jimmy and Draymond at the front court against teams over the past month or two with teams with size like that?
Well, we've been really good, starting Draymond at the 5. I was thrilled to get Quentin Post back tonight because when we can put him out there with Draymond, it just relieves Draymond from that responsibility to guard the other 5 for tonight, 15, 16 minutes. We need to be able to play big too. Looney has been really good this last month, so we've got options, but our best lineup has been the starters. They've put together a really good 1-loss record, and but we've got options after that to go bigger.
All right, there's Warriors head coach Steve Kerr post-game in Portland after the Warriors knocked off the Blazers. Did it pretty comfortably. Steph did not have to play the fourth quarter, which was good news considering that he did leave the game momentarily. He jammed his right thumb again on his shooting hand, and that's a thumb that's been bothering him at times throughout this year. He jammed that on a defender's knee, and he went to the locker room, got an X-ray. X-rays came back negative, and he came back into the game, which is good news there. Seemed like the Warriors dodged a bullet, but good that Steph did not have to play in the fourth quarter. Warriors win the game 103-86. You heard Steve Kerr say there that they're not going to practice tomorrow. The team is going to fly back to the Bay Area tonight, and they're not going to practice tomorrow because Steve said, quote, thinks rest is more valuable. And I would tend to agree with him considering the way the Warriors have been playing of late. Not necessarily sure how much of a difference one practice is going to make. Now, I will say you are playing a Clippers team that you're somewhat familiar with. The last time the Warriors played the Clippers, it's been a long time. Warriors versus the Clippers, you got to go all the way back. Let's see here. It's going to be a while. You played them October 27th, you played them November 18th, and you played them December 27th. They have not played them, the Warriors haven't, in 2025. You've got to go back nearly 4 full months the last time the Warriors played the Clippers. And in any of those 3 games versus the Clippers, the Warriors did not see Kawhi Leonard. So while you can say this is a team they kind of know, it's also an entirely different team now. Now, they have played a lot of Clippers and Kawhi games before. They've played Kawhi a ton in their history. But this is a specific Clippers team that might be the hottest team in basketball right now. And they are just reeling off win after win after win after win. And again, just like the Warriors, despite playing this great basketball for like 2 months, they still have everything to play for coming up on Sunday. All right. We'll get into that a little bit more here. 888-957-9570 is the number to call or text if you want to join in on the conversation. I want to remind you right now, though, that you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, and Odyssey Sports Station, always live on the free Odyssey app, and now coming to you live from the Laughing Monk Studios. I think really quick, before we talk a little bit more about the Clippers, what Steve Kerr said about Quentin Post is really important. And I was laying this out on Warriors Live. I think Quentin Post is severely undervalued in terms of his importance and his value to the team. He doesn't have to be scoring a ton to prove value. I mean, he had 10 points tonight off the bench in 15 and a half minutes. You will take 10 points in 15 and a half minutes every single game from Quentin Post. 3 for 7 from the field, 2 for 5 from downtown. Actually had a really nice block in this game as well. He is getting better defensively. No one's going to mistake him for an elite rim protector. He is getting better there, though. But where his value is felt the most, in my opinion, is in that unit, beginning a second quarter and beginning a fourth quarter. He's out there with Jimmy and with Draymond and with normally like Moody and Pods. It's like the 4 starters, not Steph, plus Quentin Post. And Quentin Post is the one that really makes that group work. Because, and we just saw it when when Post wasn't available versus the Spurs. When Steph checked out and the Warriors went to that lineup without Steph, 4 starters, not Steph, the other 4 starters, and a big. Without Post, it became TJD or Looney. It did not work. There's no spacing in that unit. Your best shooter is Pods. Your second best shooter is Moody, and Moody has not been shooting the 3-ball well of late. There's no spacing. It does not work. And when that's happening with your offense, every possession down, one, it's hard to get good looks from outside because there's not a lot of those shooters that you even feel good about shooting. You don't feel good about Looney or TJD shooting. You don't feel good about Draymond shooting. You don't really feel good about Jimmy shooting. Of late, you feel pretty good with Podziemski shooting. Of late, you don't really feel very good about Moody shooting. So you don't really have a lot of shooters that the defense has to respect. As a result, they're packing the paint, and that makes life so much harder on Jimmy Butler trying to score in the paint, getting to the free throw line. And when that's happening, and you're either taking bad shots that are wild misses off the rim and lead to fast break, easy rebounds and teams in motion the other way, or when you're just hooking up shots at the end of shot clock, or when you have to force a pass because you picked up your dribble and you have nowhere to go and you turn the ball over. All of those situations, the turnovers, the heaves at the end of shot clocks, the bad shots, the wide misses that lead to fast breaks, it all puts your defense into bad situations. And if consistently over the course of a game, you put your defense into those bad situations often, more and more and more, you're going to give up a lot more points. So when you have Quentin Post on the floor, not that he's alone in this, but when you have Quentin Post on the floor, he is just a shooter that opponents have to respect. And then you have a shooter on the floor that you want to get shots for. And it's what makes a Jimmy drive and a kick valuable. Like a Jimmy drive and a kick to a Draymond left wing 3. Like, what is that even worth? Like, Draymond can hit it, but the defense, for the most part, is going to be okay with him giving those up. But a Jimmy drive and a kick to Quentin Post in the corner, okay, now we're cooking. Now that's something real. You get that, and you get Quentin Post making a 3. Or you get that, and Quentin Post allows the defense to collapse on him, right? You have a crazy contest. Post had a moment today where he put the ball on the floor and got to the rim with a nice layup. You could do that, or you let the defense collapse on you, then you kick it out to somebody else, and then eventually there's an opening, and Jimmy scores down low, or he gets to the free throw line off of that advantage. Quentin Post, on offense, believe it or not, just makes the Warriors' life easier to the point where it helps the defense. And we pointed so much to not having Post on just the offensive end. It really is twofold. The more often you get consistent good looks, the better your defense is going to be. It's that simple. And Quentin Post helps the Warriors do that in those units without Steph. And it's why when Jimmy Butler first debuted, why the non-Steph minutes were actually better than the Steph minutes. Because that Quentin Post, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green trio was working really well. So I'm glad that Steve Kerr talked about Quentin Post, because I've been saying it for a couple of days here, how important he has been, and you really saw that in his absence. You really saw that in his absence. I also think Jimmy was awesome in this game. 11 free throws. He's been getting to the line at will. Jimmy Butler in his last 7 games, so over the 7 games in April, 57 for 59 from the free throw line. 57 for 59. What is that percentage? 57 for 59. 96.6%. And over the course of 7 games, that is 8.4 free throws per game. Jimmy does that in the playoffs, the Warriors are going to be difficult to beat, because you expect to get 25 from Steph, 8.5 free throws a game from Jimmy. That's like 8 points you can count on right there. He's well on his way to getting you the 18 that you feel like you need from him, maybe 20. He ticks up a little bit in the playoffs. And then you've got 45 points between those two, and you feel pretty good about yourself going forward. That's big. That's big for the Warriors. All right, 888-957-9570. On the Clippers, the 925 again asked me, how do you feel, Grandy, confident that they can beat the Clippers? I think this is a matchup where it's difficult to really gauge how these teams are going to feel each other out, because you have a Clippers team that has played all of their games versus the Warriors without Kawhi, and you have a Warrior team that has played all of their games versus the Clippers without Jimmy. This Warrior team is entirely different. And we look at some of the scores, Warriors versus Clippers this year. They played them 3rd game of the year. Steph did not play in that game. Actually, no, he did play in that game, but he got hurt in that game. Warriors they lost 112 to 104. It was pretty competitive. They had a really rough shooting game. Steph went down, and they lose 112 to 104. Then they played them in November in LA, and they had a really, really rough beginning. They fell behind big time. They came racing back in the second half, ultimately to lose by 3, 102 to 99. Again, it was the Clippers defense that really limited the Warriors offense. And then that was also, by the way, when the Warriors were without DeAnthony Melton. That was kind of the first loss after the DeAnthony Melton injury. They then had beaten Atlanta and New Orleans after to get to 12-3, but they were 10-2. And then that loss to LA without DeAnthony Melton kind of spelled the beginning of the Warriors' downturn. And then they last played them December 27th. That was the game in LA, no Steph, and Kuminga scored a career-high 34 points to keep the Warriors close, but they ultimately lose by 10. So you kind of have an odd situation where, 1, there's no Jimmy in any of those 3. 2, you had no Steph in 1, and you had a Steph injury in another, and then the other one you were pretty darn close and only lost by 3 points. So I don't know how much you can really gain from those 3 games. On the flip side, again, of course, you have Kawhi, who did not play in any of those 3. Kawhi is playing now, and he's been amazing. And this is the Clipper team that, over the course of the last couple of months, they have been one of the best teams in the NBA. The Clippers, let me just read this off to you. First of all, they have won 7 in a row. The Clippers, they were 32-29. They are now 49-32. So they have gone 17-3 in their last 20. The Clippers are 17-3 in their last 20. And the majority of that is with Kawhi. And in that stretch, their only losses, they lost to New Orleans, weirdly. Their other 2 losses are to Oklahoma City and Cleveland. And the losses were by 2 points to OKC at home and by 5 points in Cleveland. Like, those are the 2 best teams in the NBA record-wise, and you lost by 5 points or fewer in both of those games. You're 17-3 in your last 20. 2 of your 3 losses are to the 2 best teams in the league, and they were like down to the wire basketball games that you easily could have won. That's how good this Clippers team is right now. And honestly, if you were to tell me, like, Grandy, who are you most afraid of playing in a postseason game, in a postseason series? I'd put OKC number 1. I think they're pretty clearly like the best team in the NBA. at least the best team in the West. I have a lot of respect for Boston. They're just so deep and so talented everywhere. I think OKC is by far the best team in the West. And if you were to specifically ask me, for the Warriors, who should you not want to play in a postseason series? The Clippers might be number 2 for me, honestly, just because of how good that they are playing, and they do have the head-to-head 3-0. But again, it's entirely different teams. With that said, can the Warriors beat them in a single game? Of course they can. Of course they can. And again, if there is a reality, like I don't want to play a loss isn't the end of the world, but it really isn't, and I don't want to downplay how important Sunday is because you win and you're the 6th. You win and you're a playoff team. But if you lose, you then can beat Memphis, a team you just beat in Memphis. You can beat Memphis in San Francisco, and you're the 7, and you get the Rockets instead of the Lakers. And you could convince me the Rockets are a better matchup for the Warriors than the Lakers. So it might not be the absolute, end of the world scenario that I think a lot of us are thinking that it is in terms of avoiding the play-in. Now, you're running a lot of risk. I think the way I generally think of it, I don't really care what the matchup is. It could be Warriors versus the dream team in the first round. If you're the 6, the dream team is the 3. I would still take that over being the 7 in the play-in because I don't want to run the risk of that one-off. You run into a team that's crazy hot, right? Desmond Bane goes 8 for 10 for 3. John Morant's throwing those grenade celebrations all over the place, and the Grizzlies beat the Warriors. And then the Warriors have to go to the other play-in game and try to be the 8. And even if you win that and you still make the playoffs as the 8, then you have to take on OKC in the first round. I don't really want to have to deal with the threat of that. And in a one game, in a one-off event, like not a 7-game series, in a one-off event, you are just inviting so much volatility, right? You run into one team that just can't miss one game and your season could be over. But in a series, the Warriors can survive that. You have to beat the Warriors 4 out of 7 times. Warriors they could deal with a stinker, a clunker, a team catching fire. Yeah, it's just one game. It's all right. It's all right. We'll come back and we'll get them for game 2, or wherever that game happens, you'll come back right after and get them in the next game. So in general, I want to avoid the play-in at all costs, but there is a world where, I'll put it this way, if you guaranteed me a win versus Memphis in the play-in, you guaranteed me that win versus Memphis, and you still got, Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and maybe Saturday off before your series tips off Sunday versus the Rockets. If you guaranteed me that, I might take it. But of course, you can't guarantee me that, so I wouldn't take it. But if you could guarantee me that, I might take it. But I just don't want to have to deal with the risk of that at all. All right. 888-957-9570. A few more minutes with you here on Warriors Wrap Up. Plenty. If you want to get in a call or a text or a thought or a question wherever, shoot me a text. Give me a call, 888-957-9570. Or you can text, add to our YouTube chat, youtube.com/957thegame. I want to get to crashing the boards before we get on out of here, which is brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. Crashing the boards tonight for the Warriors. Not really much in terms of high numbers. I think I'm going to have to go to an opponent this time. Leading rebounder for the Warriors was Podziemski and Draymond, both with 7. But when you had Donovan Clingan on the other end with 15 boards, you got to give it to the big man. The rookie big man out of UConn, top 10 pick for the Blazers, having a good close to the season. By the way, I really like Portland. I think next year you're going to be looking at them as a play-in team. I think Portland has a lot of really quality pieces. I like the Trailblazers. Clingan, a big reason why. 15 boards in this game. He gets the honor of crashing the boards, which as always is brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. He is a beast. And I saw someone on the text line. Let's see. Where is it? The 925. Why is it so hard to find a big like Donovan Clingan? Well, bottom out, pick in the top 10 of the draft, and that's how you find someone like that. Yeah, I mean, you get a big that is that big and that skilled and that physical. He's going to go early in the draft. And the Warriors tried to get someone like that in James Wiseman. It didn't work out. But that's how you do it. You bottom out. You be a bad basketball team. you get a high draft pick and you hope you pick the right guy. And it seemed like the Blazers might have done that. But he was good, had a double-double, 14 points, 15 rebounds. He gets the honor of crashing the boards. Again, brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. The 925 also reminded me of something else. Maybe someone on the YouTube or on the text line can help me out with this. I saw the headline. I didn't dive into it any further. LeBron apparently aggravated his groin today. Is that true? If you have any info, let me know on YouTube or on the text line. I'm going to try to look this up and see what I can find. LeBron apparently left the game in the third quarter with a groin injury. Let's see. Let me see if I can find an update from any Lakers beat reporter, because that is big. That is big in terms of how the 6 versus 3 matchup says. Reading through Dave McMenamin post game. Let's see. Dave McMenamin covers the Lakers for ESPN. Says LeBron James checked out with 7:27 to go in the third quarter and hasn't subbed back in yet. He was favoring his left side. Obviously, he's been dealing with a left groin strain this season. The wrap he was wearing on the bench seemed placed more on his left quad or hip area, though. McMenamin later added, after speaking to JJ Redick postgame, that Redick was asked about LeBron in that injury. Redick said, quote, "He's fine." Okay, that's the update. That's the update from Dave McMenamin. Does not look like a big deal, but something to keep an eye on. Lakers are locked into the 3, so they have the week off no matter what, and they do not need to play anybody on Sunday. Who do the Lakers have on Sunday, by the way? I wrote it down. Lakers have Portland. Oh, they're in Portland. So 2 teams that don't care about winning that basketball game. That'll be fun. But so they can rest LeBron Sunday. Don't have to play him again until they begin their postseason either on Saturday or Sunday next weekend. And then I would imagine they're pretty hopeful that LeBron is going to be ready to go at that point. Yeah, it's going to set up a really fun day around the Western Conference on Sunday. And what's really fun about this is you have no games tomorrow, which means everybody plays again on Sunday, and you've got games that are going to tip off in 2 windows. Eastern Conference games at 10 in the morning, Western Conference games at 12:30, assuming you're out here on Pacific Standard Time. 10 o'clock in the morning for Eastern, 12:30 in the afternoon for Western Conference games. The games that you need to worry about, essentially, there's really 2, but keep an eye on a third just in case. Nuggets-Rockets matters only if the Nuggets lose, because that would affect tiebreakers. It's not really going to affect the Warriors at all, though. It's going to affect the Clippers, and it's going to affect the T-Wolves. Not going to affect the Warriors, but Nuggets-Rockets is important in terms of the Western standings. Warriors-Clippers, of course, and these are all 12:30. Jazz-T-Wolves is very important. If the Warriors lose, they need the T-Wolves to lose in order to be the 6th seed in the West. But again, if the Warriors win, they will be the 6th no matter what the Timberwolves do. And then the other one, that's it. That's it, because the Warriors are playing the Clippers. That's all that matters for the Warriors. Warriors, Clippers, Timberwolves, Jazz, and then the other one for movement in the West is Nuggets, Rockets. That's it. And the big one is going to be Warriors, Clippers at 12:30 here on 95.7 The Game. And I'll be with you at 11. And I'll have an hour edition of Warriors Live on Sunday morning, beginning at 11. I'll be live from Splash. You can stop by and say what's up. Warriors, Clippers, tip-off at 12:30. I'm live at 11 until noon. Then I'll hand it off to Tim Roy, who's got you covered until tip-off, and I'll be back after the game for Warriors wrap-up, as always, here on 95.7 The Game. All right, looking forward to it. Sunday is when it all goes down. Win, and the Warriors are the 6th. Lose, and they need a miracle in terms of the Jazz, who have 17 wins, beating the Timberwolves in Minnesota. I would not count on the Warriors, so just win. Just beat the Clippers on Sunday. You will be the 6th. If you lose, you're very likely the 7, but does not mean season over. You have 3 shots. They're all at home to make the playoffs. Beat the Clippers Sunday, you're the 6th. You have the Lakers in the first round. Lose to the Clippers. Then you play Memphis in the 7-8 play-in game, win that game, you're the 7. You have the Rockets in the first round. If you lose that, you would then take on the winner of Mavericks Kings in the second play-in game. If you win that, you're the 8, and you take on OKC. That is not great because OKC is very good. It's better than nothing. It's also not great because you would have to play on Friday, and you would not get a lot of time off before that series would open on Sunday. So, win on Sunday, this Sunday, get into the playoffs, and enjoy a week off. Otherwise, we'll see you at Chase on Tuesday when the Grizzlies are in town for the play-in tournament. Okay, that'll do it for Warriors Wrap-Up tonight. Thanks so much to Chris O'Connell and to Cam Williams behind the glass. My name is Mark Graney signing off. Thanks as always to all of the callers, the texters, the YouTubers. I will be with you again on Sunday. We've also got Warriors this week tomorrow morning, beginning at 9 in the morning with Evan Giddings and Dan Devone. Those two will bring you 3 hours of Warriors talk to get you ready for the game as well. And then I will be back with you on Sunday morning, 11 a.m. sharp for Warriors Live ahead of Warriors and Clippers. It feels like a playoff game. It's just game 82, but winner is a playoff team, loser likely a play-in team. Looking forward to it. I'll talk to you Sunday. For now, my name is Mark Randy signing off. Have a good night. I'll talk to you Sunday right here on 95.7 The Game.
Bring spring to your door with Target Circle 360.